I just want to say thank you to Bonfire for letting us film in this studio today. Go to bonfire.com.au for a free no obligation consult today. Welcome back to the show, Lloyd. Lloyd Evans. What's this, number 4, number 5?
Yeah, I think it's 4, but it might be 5, I guess.
Feels like a million.
Yeah.
In a good way,
But we're in a new place, so it feels fresh.
Production is up. The Crooked Smile podcast, the quality of our recording and our studio level has grown.
Yeah. And we're surrounded by rice as well today. Do you want to explain that one?
So basically, we're still balling on a budget at the Crooked Smile podcast, and we use rice bags, basmati rice bags, to weigh down the microphone stands that you're seeing on the camera if you're watching on the visual. And a hole in one of the rice bags emerged today as I was setting up. So there is a lot of rice at Lloyd's feet.
Yeah, but 76 episodes, right? You haven't done too badly to keep these bags of rice.
I think it's 77. We've gotten 77 episodes out of the Ed's basmati rice bags.
Fair play. No, that's and I know these bags have been everywhere. You've done a bit of filming for me in other places. And...
Well, I was going to say, you started in the tax office that we first filmed in, and then you've been at my mother's old house.
Did I go there? No, I don't think I got there.
No, we filmed at Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So the first 2 were at the tax. The third one was at Hollywood. Now the 4th is here. So you missed my mother's house.
Yeah. But I've
because then you would know my mom.
Yes. Yeah. We haven't met. Apparently she's seen me out and about.
She's a fan of Man Health Clinic.
I really hope next time she sees me, she comes and finds me. What's your mum's name? Danelle.
We refer to her on the show as Campbell's mum.
Okay.
The #1 fan of the Crooked Smile podcast. Watches every episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for context, my mum walked past Lloyd the other day in Cottesloe and then told me she was going to go up and say hi, Lloyd. And you're with Gloria and Claire.
Okay, so I was probably all over the shop chasing Gloria. She was either on my shoulders.
I think she was in a pram.
Yeah, she would have been in a pushchair or her mobility aid for her. You know, she's 9 now, and it's actually tricky to find something that we can keep Gloria safe in. So just another challenge of having so I don't know if I've said before. Yeah, Gloria is 9. She's got a very rare genetic condition. I've probably told you, just never maybe on the podcast. In fact, I probably have actually. I've talked about
briefly.
Gloria,
I think briefly.
Yeah. So I would have been probably in the park or Cottesloe seafront, trying to grapple with a 2-year-old, her brother, trying to keep Gloria safe in her mobility aid. And Geth probably wasn't with us. He was probably at home being an 18-year-old in his own space, wanting a little bit of peace and quiet.
He was out modelling.
Maybe, or in the gym, or playing basketball, or all the other amazing things that an 18-year-old gets to do around the western suburbs, right?
Absolutely. I just want to say a massive thanks to our sponsors for today's show, Proactive Health. Go to proactivehealthgroup.com.au for a free health newsletter where you will get weekly information on sleep, diet, and exercise with actionable steps and simple science behind it to improve your day-to-day life. All you need is an email to sign up, and it's absolutely free. Go to proactivehealthgroup.com.au today. Well, I think you talked a little bit about it in your Men's Health article that you recently had published.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it was. So Australian Men's Health. That was.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something that really. I got a lot of people contact me about that. It was. So Men's Health magazine was something that I grew up with. You know, back in the UK, it was a big thing. I don't think there's as many hard copies of that now. I think maybe in the UK and in the US, you still can buy the hard copy of Men's Health, but I don't think in Australia it exists. I think it's purely an online
I'm not big on all the magazines. It's a bit before my time.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Whereas I grew up with you should have FHM.
I've heard of Playboy.
Yeah, I didn't quite know. That wasn't me. But FHM stands for Him magazine, I think. So FHM was huge back in the UK when I was growing up. So that would have been your age or Geth's age, and they were the magazines that you learnt everything about what it was to be a man. Actually, almost. There was a lot of good things in there, a lot of relatable things, but probably quite a few bad things as well, maybe that you could get really sucked into. And unlike today where you've got so many resources, sorry, my voice this morning, crikey, this is typical, isn't it? There we go. Yeah, unlike today where you've got access to so many pieces of information. Back in the day when you didn't have social media, you didn't have as many websites and places to go. You just had this magazine that maybe came out once every couple of, or maybe once a month. So that's what I relied on, and that's where I got all my. There'd be jokes in there. There'd be relatable stories. There'd be lots on sport, weightlifting, bodybuilding. That's what it was all about. So yeah, it's I reminisce about those magazines.
Well, I guess that you didn't have like a YouTube back in the day that everything would be on, and you wouldn't have to go and find everything from a local newsletter, or not newsletter, but a local print shop or whatever it was called. You'd have to, now you can go on YouTube and there's a million videos on every single topic, almost too many, almost too much information all contradicting itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about algorithms, right? And once you start getting a bit of momentum down one route, I say there's all this information out there, right? But you'll know yourself, you start drumming up a little bit of a habit, or, you start forming a pattern with what you're looking at and searching, and what gets sent or thrown to you becomes more and more narrowed, right? Until in the end, you're actually so blinkered because that algorithm is purely focused on one area. I know you talked about last week with Lily, I think, about you have two accounts, right?
The podcast account and my own Instagram account. And the podcast one is all like creative videos, and my own one's just brain rot.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as much as there's all this information out there now at the fingertips of everybody, which I think is good in some ways, actually it can easily get narrowed down very, very quickly. So it's almost becoming like me 20 years ago when you just had one magazine for guys, and that's what you lived by. You're still in that situation now, all these years later.
Yeah.
Whereas you're influencing it so more because you're the one searching and reading it.
100%.
So you're creating your own narrowed, filtered, blinkered view of the world.
So how do you decide what to write in the article?
Oh, that was that was a really good one. So look, I got chatting to the editor, and I'd sort of had a few ideas with where I'd like to go, sort of maybe about metabolic health. I love that aspect of men's health, being overweight, obesity, pre-diabetes. Men are at risk of so many metabolic conditions. Our metabolic health is not good.
I've cut in here. I've been reading this book, and it's some of the stuff in it is a little extreme, but a lot of it is really good information. Good Energy by Callie Means.
Okay, I don't know that one.
And it's a book, and it breaks down a lot of the big pharma stuff and this like symptoms over causes, treatment, and preventative healthcare versus like addressing symptoms and just keeping on medication. But it underpins that everything is tied down to your metabolic health and your ability to convert food into energy. And when stuff in that chain breaks down, that's when all these diseases and stuff stem from.
Yeah, it's why I've got a pretty big passion for it. So yeah, metabolic health, I talk about it with almost every patient, every guy that I see, because yeah, it does underlie heart disease risk, stroke risk, even cancer risk. There's
and autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, and it's the theory is all about sort of inflammation and excess calories in, excess fat distribution, both subcutaneously, so that's the stuff we see around our waist, under our chin, on the chest, but also visceral fat, which is internally around our organs. And I talk a lot about something called metabolic associated fatty liver disease, and how this visceral fat can accumulate within and around the organs. That is very detrimental. That's very metabolic, very inflammatory. And those inflammatory markers, you can imagine if you're metabolically unhealthy in your 20s and 30s, you've got all this visceral fat that's within the abdominal cavity, and it's inflammatory, and it's releasing all these bad things, basically. And
insulin resistance.
Absolutely, yeah. I could go really in depth. I won't, but yeah.
She also talks about glucose monitors. I know you're a fan of them as well.
And the continuous glucose monitoring, exactly. So I've talked about that before, and that is something I use because I'm a big advocate for, like, we can get a diagnosis of diabetes. Diabetes is very detrimental. Type 2 diabetes can be very detrimental to somebody's health. It can increase your risk of heart disease, stroke. and a few other conditions as well. But my argument is that we don't want to be diagnosing diabetes. We want to be going 5, 10, 15 years before that and picking up on the warning signs. And you may have heard of pre-diabetes, and we can detect that and diagnose that. And what the basis of that is something called insulin resistance. So you can sort of, I can do tests now that can try and pick up the very early signs that you're going to develop diabetes later in life by picking up on, insulin resistance and something called impaired fasting glucose and impaired glucose tolerance. And one of the quickest and easiest ways of doing that is with a continuous glucose monitor. So you wear it for 2 weeks and we get to see how many spikes of glucose are you getting? How well is your body controlling glucose?
Two things from the book. It's like the glucose monitoring, you can really get lifetime data on what you're eating and how it's affecting your insulin. And then the other thing was...
Or glucose.
Glucose spikes, sorry. Glucose
we can't
spikes.
quite detect
Not
insulin yet.
Glucose spikes, sorry. And then the other thing was doing a fasted insulin test.
Okay.
And how that's not a standardized test, but that tells heaps and people should be asking for those sort of tests.
Yeah. So everything's within reason, and I don't go throwing every test to every patient. And I've said that like very early on. Medicine is about speaking to patients, explaining why you're doing tests. We can't just throw every test to everybody. But you're right, we can do a fasting insulin level, and a little bit tricky to work out what a standard normal fasting insulin level should be for each person. But if you're fasting insulin, so when you've not had any food at all, any carbohydrate or glucose into your body for a certain amount of time, usually sort of 8 to 12 or 10 to 16 hours even, your insulin should be pretty low or pretty standard within a reasonable reference range. If, however, when you check a blood test, your insulin is actually high, it's a sign that your body is just, your pancreas is really still trying to push out insulin to control your blood sugar. So if your fasting insulin is quite high, it's a sign potentially that your body is working hard to control the sugar. So it is controlling it, but it's having to work hard to control it. That is what I can look at to say, okay, you're not diabetic, your sugar level is actually fine in your blood, but look how hard your body is working to make sure it stays within this level. At some point, your body burns out, your body gets fed up, you start becoming less sensitive to insulin, and that's when the glucose starts climbing, and that's what diabetes is. So look, preventative medicine, that's what I'm all about. And metabolic health, it brings us right back to, what I wanted to talk about in the Men's Health article. Metabolic health was one thing, and I think it is something I will talk about with them again, but it wasn't the right time maybe for that conversation. Actually, what we did talk about was mental health.
Talked a bit about your journey in it as well.
Yeah, that's it. So I tried to make it relatable. So, we talked about, what's big, what do we really want guys to know? And it was, look, mental health is a big thing. It's topical. Let's get a conversation going. I thought, well, how can I talk about that whilst making it, a little bit more relatable and entertaining almost? I can give a lecture on mental health and depression and anxiety and medications and how we can get the conversation going. But actually I thought, well, let's talk about my mental health. Now, interestingly, if you've read the article, I've been very fortunate that I don't, I don't suffer with a mental health condition, never have. But I try and emphasize during the article that we all, however, have struggles. We have to overcome certain challenges. And I tried to just give a few pearls of wisdom, feel the feels, for example. And, it's not about...
you're due for a bad one.
You're due for a bad game. That was my thought process for years as a soccer player. It's not about... I can't even remember my own catchphrases now, but it's not about turning your life around. It's just about withstanding.
I reckon I got that one in my head, because then the day afterwards I had a bad day and I was like, oh, you're due for a bad game. You're due for... I'm like, am I having one because I've started thinking about it last night?
Yeah. I don't know.
I haven't had one since.
Yeah, that's it. Look, and if No, exactly. And if there's guys out there that can just remember one of those catchphrases and makes their day a little bit easier, then great. That's what it was all about. So yeah, I if you look, I tried to tie each one of my pearls, so to speak, to each phase of my life, and that basically is each child in my life. So my son at 18, when we had him, and how that was a challenge in its own way, and how you overcome a huge change in your life at the age of 18. Then I talked about Gloria, our 9-year-old, who that was a completely different challenge in terms of how you deal with fathering a child with special needs and additional needs, and now Arthur, who's 2, and how that really put things in perspective for me about having to be selfish, to be selfless. I was mid-30s having Arthur, and I want to make sure that I'm still there at 70, 80, 90 for him and my grandchildren. So yeah, just different stages of your life, and how you approach that from a mental point of view. So that's what the article was about, and I loved writing it. But it was tricky, it was challenging, emotional, but I had really good feedback. Lots of people sort of said, "Wow, what a fantastic article." So yeah, hopefully write a few more.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'll tie back quickly to this book, and then this will be the last I'll speak
go
of
on.
it, because
Yeah.
I'm not a specialist at all on this area. But the other really interesting link that she drew was that whether it's vegetarian diets or carnivore diets or all these different trends, like the reason why they're so successful with some of them is because both of them, the common denominator is they're cutting out processed food. So it's like, because there's Mediterranean diet, there's carnivore diet, there's vegetarian diet, and all of them cut out processed food, and all of them see inflammation go down, and like all their health markers go up, and it seems to be, oh well, this data's all right, so you should do carnivore, but then it's no, this data's all right, so you should be a vegetarian. But in reality, it's just cutting out processed food is the key to good metabolic health.
Yeah, I've pretty much got to agree. I'm not someone who pushes any particular
Well, that's
diet.
what she said. I'm not here to debate which one's the best. I'm just here to draw the common denominator, which is processed food is the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think making sure you're getting the right macros in the right proportion. So macros, when we talk about fat, protein, carbohydrates, and fiber, which is a huge thing these days in terms of, are we as a Western society getting enough fiber in our diets? Well, it links back to processed foods, because processed foods don't have much fiber in them. These processed foods are very calorie dense as well. So taking out the type of food, just the amount of calories that are in processed foods is detrimental, because you can pile in all these calories into a very small amount of food, compared to, I think you've talked about this before, compared to whole foods that fill you up.
Higher satiety, more nutrient dense.
Exactly, yeah. So, I do at times in my clinic talk about the Mediterranean diet. I do like that for a few reasons. It's evidenced to assist with cardiovascular health, heart health.
I'm a big fan of extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah, look, there's evidence for that. Fish oils, lots of fiber, lots of whole grain foods, vegetables. 5 portions of vegetables a day is the current Australian guideline, and 2 portions of fruits. And I think I like that proportion.
See, I smash the fruit, but I struggle with the vegetables.
Yeah.
Recently, though, I've started adding in rocket and spinach, like the mix, and just cooking it in with mince or with scrambled eggs, just to get that. Because in the book as well, it talks about cruciferous vegetables reducing oxidative stress.
Yeah. Again, I can't quote the evidence to it, but look, it's a whole food. It's got fiber in it. It's a different, different. In fact, I'll link back to a talk I did yesterday at Scotch College. We were talking about this just before coming on, and I talked about "eat the rainbow" as a little catchphrase for these guys. So I
Eat
gave
the
a talk,
rainbow.
Eat the rainbow, and I don't mean a bag of Skittles, and we had a bit of a laugh about that during the talk, but I mean looking at your vegetables and really trying, and not just vegetables, but food in general, and just trying to, as a rule, mix up the amount of colors you're getting in your diet every day. So your reds, your oranges, your yellows, your blues, your purples, and all the colors of the rainbow, basically.
What would purple be?
So purple would be, so purple/blue would be
Don't say
your
blueberries.
blueberries, but also, what's the other? There was one
Pumpkin?
I couldn't.
Or is that
Pumpkin's
more
more the orange
Yeah.
and the beta carotene that we see in carrots as well.
Red
so-
onions, because they're kind of purpley.
Yeah. Again, I just trying to get the boys to think
I'm
about.
thinking too literally.
Yeah, no, there is a vegetable, and I quoted it yesterday, and it's not jackfruit. It's
Passion fruit?
no, so passion fruit's not that purple color, is it? There's definitely some purple foods out there. But yeah, it was about just trying to vary up your fruit and vegetables in a day, and how all the different colors can actually assist with different body functions and different organs. So yeah, look, I'm not going to say, carnivore diet, Mediterranean diet, this is only for you. Look, the best diet is the one that you can stick to. And it's such a stereotypical phrase to be using, but the best one is the one you can stick to, that allows you to be happy, that allows you sustainability, and sits right with you without being a detriment to your health. But for me, I do talk about the Mediterranean diet a lot, because I see a lot of guys with heart disease who are overweight, who need to reduce their calorie intake whilst maintaining, whilst maintaining a good varied
Sufficient
diet
nutrition.
to get those micronutrients in as well. And for me, I do like the Mediterranean diet, but I'm not here to say this is the only diet. There's people out on social media who do that. That's not me. It's just about, you've got to be realistic, but I can't fault the Mediterranean diet.
The other thing I like is there's specific foods that I just think are superfoods. And I'll give examples. An avocado, eggs if you don't have the pre-genetic disposition to it, like the heart thing.
Yeah.
Blueberries,
Yeah.
bone broth, like proper bone broth, sweet potatoes,
Yeah.
grass-fed steak that's like good sourced meat.
Yeah. And all these are whole foods, right? These are foods
These
that
are the
haven't
foods
been
that if
touched.
I smash, I feel so good.
Yeah.
Good Greek yogurt as well.
Yeah. It's all
Fermented high protein.
Yeah. And have you had a nutritionist or a dietitian on? Because
I reckon it would be fascinating. I think nutritionist over dietitian. I've heard that nutritionists are a bit more on the like nutrient side of.
Yeah, I think qualification wise they're different. Yes, so
Could you recommend a nutritionist to have on the show?
Have on. Yeah, I could. I'll talk to you at the end. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago with he's a dietitian, I believe, by qualification, but with a particular interest in sort of performance, high performance athletes. He's great. I did a talk with him on heart disease risk, and actually he talked about the Mediterranean diet and protein and getting adequate protein, but also, interestingly, about a section of society, often females, young females, who aren't getting enough nutrients. So see the big talk about overeating and overconsuming and obesity and being overweight, which I do talk about a lot for guys, but he actually talked about how the flip side is there's a lot of young active females who aren't getting enough nutrients within their diet, and that's really affecting their overall health and performance as well. So I know that would interest you. I think
one of the lowest barrier to entry ones is eggs, because I'll bulk boil eggs and then just do like 3 a day as part of a meal. And it's so easy to do, and it's got the protein and the nutrients in the yolk, and then it's
there's a bit of a fear with eggs that it's going to drive up your cholesterol, but there's more and more evidence that unless you're consuming huge amounts,
and you have the heart.
Yeah, so I don't quite know when you talk about the heart, it's whether you just, I don't know quite what you're referring to there, but whether it's ultimately everybody is different genetically, and we would each process cholesterol differently. So you can,
or maybe it's not the heart, maybe it's just cholesterol.
I think it's cholesterol and cardiovascular health.
You talking about it ages ago on a podcast on what's it called?
Not Tackle Talk.
I think it was Tackle
yeah,
Talk.
with Andrew and Addy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was Tackle Talk.
Yeah, we would have, because we do talk a lot about that. And
I've just roped in the heart.
yeah, no, and you're right, because cardiovascular health is heart and blood vessels, basically. And yeah, huge issue for guys. You know, it's one of the biggest killers of men is cardiovascular disease. I'm going to do a talk after this for Men's Health Week, and a big emphasis on that talk is cardiovascular health and how we've got all these modifiable risk factors. Okay, I love risk, and I've really become a bit of a geek when it comes to, okay, what's your risk of...
You love preventing risk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, knowing your
Not
risk.
taking risk.
No, don't take risk. Absolutely. You'll know. My wife will tell you I am the least risk taker in our family. But I love knowing my risk and the risk of my patients. And then, right, how can we lower your risk? So I'm delivering a talk later, and we talk about modifiable risk factors, and also those risk factors you can't do anything about. So if you have those risk factors you can't do anything about, you've got to be full on, spot on with those risk factors you can do something about. So you can't change your age, you can't choose your gender. There's certain biochemical markers in your blood that you can't actually change. No matter how much you eat or drink or don't drink alcohol or don't smoke, you can still have markers in your blood that are regarded as high risk for heart disease and stroke that right now in the world we can't do anything about. Now, there are drugs on their way that could maybe do something about that, but not at the moment, really. So look, let's look at those risk factors you have and be aware of them, that you can't do anything about right now, but you can do something about all these risk factors. Are you overweight? Are you insulin resistant? Do you have high blood pressure? And the list goes on. So, and cholesterol being one of the big ones that you can do something about. And there's so much evidence that having a high level of something called low density lipoprotein cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, which a lot of people call bad cholesterol.
And then HDL is the other one.
HDL, which people call good cholesterol. Actually, there's no good and bad. Technically, cholesterol is cholesterol. It's what that cholesterol is being carried by in your body that is good or bad. So yeah, if you can lower that LDL cholesterol, you can really reduce your risk of heart disease and stroke.
Is that what extra virgin olive oil does?
So extra virgin olive oil can help with the HDL cholesterol.
Raise the HDL.
The good type of cholesterol.
Quotation mark.
Yeah, which can then assist with LDL cholesterol. And we talk about other fats in our blood called triglycerides. And look, it's fascinating to me, but it all comes back to risk. I try and use this analogy of a big spider's web. And each part of the web is a risk factor. And if you want your web to be as small as possible, okay? Because the bigger your web, the higher your risk of heart disease and stroke and death. And if you can make that web as small as possible, then your risk is much lower. So let's say, one part of the web is your blood pressure, and the higher your blood pressure, the more you stretch the web. The other might be your cholesterol. However high your cholesterol is, the more the web stretches. And you've got all these different risk factors. And I like to sit down with my guys and say, look, your web is this big. Your blood pressure's up here, your cholesterol's up here, but you're not overweight. Your weight's actually really good. So that brings the web in a bit smaller. And I visually like to see guys, so you can draw this web and say, look, here's all your risk factors. We can't do anything about these ones, but we can really do something about these. So let's bring these in. And suddenly they see, oh yeah, okay, if I can do that, my web becomes smaller. So I love that analogy, and you can use various analogies, but risk is a really big thing for guys. I think guys like to see things visually. They like to talk numbers. We're all got our watches and we're tracking. And I think talking about cardiovascular risk is a big one for me. I love doing it. I can sit down these days and tell guys, right, what's your risk in 5 years of having a heart attack? What's your risk in 10 years? And in fact, there's calculators and equations out there now that can say, look, what's your risk over your lifetime? And I've had a bit of fun myself. I've put my own details in.
Your sleep would be tanking that number, Lloyd.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's sleep is another... Lack of sleep is another risk factor, actually, and that's modifiable. It's
You're taking risk, Lloyd.
I know, I am. But I've said time and time again, I sacrifice my sleep to actually improve my exercise.
Maybe you're just going to be selfish to be selfish and get some more sleep, Lloyd.
Great catchphrase. So let me ask you something.
Okay.
So I'm turning this right on its head. The crooked smile. What's the What's the rationale behind that name? I was thinking of this today, and the reason why, I was driving here and I was listening to Modern Wisdom. Okay,
Chris
I know you're
Williamson.
a massive fan of Chris Williamson. Have you listened to the Jimmy Carr episode, by the way?
No.
Oh,
No, but that's recent, isn't it?
that has just come out, and I was driving
He's
in
brilliant
today.
as well,
Jimmy
Jimmy
Carr,
Carr.
yeah.
I was listening to him on Rogan recently.
Yeah, okay, he's done Rogan as well. I know he's touring, right? But I was thinking, yeah, Modern Wisdom. Of course, what an easy, simple name. I was driving in. I think, oh, everything Jimmy Carr and Chris Williamson are saying. I'm like, yes, I love that. Yeah, that's so relatable. Yes, and it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel like, right, that's how I'm going to live my life. And I thought, yeah, Crooked Smile. I know I know Chris Williamson is a bit. I think he's an icon of yours, maybe, and you like Chris.
He's
and
one of
and
the podcasts I watched that got me into it for sure.
So, Crooked Smile. What's the rationale behind that name?
It's authentic.
Yeah, okay.
A Crooked Smile is authentic. It's yours to own. It's something that you can't change. I know you can change it these days with like medical procedures and stuff, but like realistically, I want conversations to be raw and authentic and going into the world of people's lives. Like right now, you're the specialist on all this type of stuff and you're breaking it down and talking about it in depth. And I find it super fascinating. And doing that, not just with your area, but everyone's area of life and having that authentic take on their lives. And then it turns out that Crooked Smile is like Campbell, the Scottish translation for Campbell. And I found this out afterwards.
No way.
A year later is wry mouth or crooked mouth is Campbell
You're
in
kidding.
Scottish.
That's mad, right? It's
Yeah.
meant to be. It's obviously meant to be.
One of my girlfriend's friends sent it to my girlfriend saying, "Did you know this?" And like showed me a year into the podcast.
That's mad.
So it's almost like it's meant to be.
Yeah.
It's meant
I know.
to be.
I did an episode. It was like it was meant to be. I think the last episode I did with you and Johnny, and he'd lost a tooth after playing.
Well, I
footy.
used to have really crooked bottom teeth, but I've done Invisalign to fix
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, Crooked Smile, it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's like a raw take on someone's life and actually going in depth on it.
Yeah, okay.
I find that super fascinating.
No, it's like, so you're taking the best bits of every person and
all the worst.
all the
Crooked
worst.
Smile,
Yeah.
There
True,
is no best
true.
or worst. It's just authentic.
Yeah. No, I like that.
It's not fake.
Yeah, okay. And I guess that's what podcasts are about, right? Every guest you're having on is giving their take. You're soaking that in, and then you're moving on, and
100%.
and they are.
And also it's real. It's not fake.
Yeah,
That's the other thing. Like
very true.
in the media, there's so much fake stuff now, whereas I just want real conversations. Like that Crooked Smile is just, to me, the word that epitomizes it is authentic.
Yeah. And where are you going with it? Where do you want this to go?
1,000 episodes, Lloyd.
Yeah?
Got to get to 1,000 episodes.
Fair play. Not even Chris Williamson's at 1,000, is he?
I don't think I'll be there for a while. I'd have to
You never know.
I'd have to be pumping out 3 a week to get to that.
Yeah.
But I always say if I get to 1,000 episodes, I'll then decide what I want to do with the podcast. And I know if I get to 1,000, then I want to keep going.
Yeah, fair play.
But we'll see. I'm just really enjoying it. It's good to meet lots of new people. I would never have met you if I didn't have the podcast.
Yeah,
for
that's
example.
it.
And it's like, it's good networking. It's fascinating. I enjoy doing it. And I think that's the most important thing, is whether or not I'm getting something out of it, because I'm investing so much time into it. And if one day it makes money with sponsorships or ad revenue, that's great. But it's like, that's not the reason I'm doing it. Like Chris Williamson, no one watched his, like for the first 200 episodes or something. Rogan didn't make money for 4 years doing his podcast, and he was already an established comedian and TV show host before he started. It's a slow burn, and you got to be in it for the long run, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the same in a lot of things in life. I've been up and running a year and a half
health.
with Man Health, absolutely. And people talk about it. People are starting to get a bit of awareness, but it's still a slow burn. It still takes hard graft and doing a lot for zero money or sometimes losing money. But that's not what it's about, right? Eventually you start going, actually, this is just about experiencing things, and life isn't just about money and getting paid for it.
I'm always looking for ways to up the studio or optimize my workflow. I think I might start outsourcing clips because I just don't have time to do them. I'm spread too thin. I've just started reading Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Yeah.
And that's doing less to get more results. So stop spreading yourself so thin, basically, to get more out of what you're doing and really having your priorities in order.
Well, I think you do it well. I'll be honest. I think you do it so well. I was listening to you and Johnny. I was listening to your final episode, and you guys
talking about AI.
yeah, but I was like, God, guys, you're quoting, like, your memory is mad. You're quoting books that you've read and all these different people I've never heard of. I'm thinking, God, am I like, I think you're so well read. You're so driven. You explore so many aspects of life, and yeah, you're reading different books at different times. Honestly, I could count on one hand the amount of books that I've read, and I'm embarrassed by that. But I felt that my life.
You do a lot of listening though when you're driving.
Absolutely, a lot of podcasts now and some audiobooks I've started to get into. Which
See, I can't do audiobooks
Yeah.
because I don't retain it. I
Yeah.
have to read the physical copy.
but I just don't retain anything much at all. I think
That's not true because we've just talked about all this stuff in depth,
yeah,
which is
so
your specialty.
the caveat was going to be the only thing I've retained in my life is medicine, because I've been an all or nothing guy, and I've got to try and tone that back a bit, because there's so much more to life than just soaking up and being a good doctor, as much as I'd love to be, and I am, I hope. So my wife would laugh, every minute that I had to myself, whether it was on holiday, in the evenings, it would just be, well, I need to be the best doctor I can ever be. Like, I need to soak up. I need to read medical journals. I need to be reading textbooks. And I've got to the age of 36 and gone, crikey, all I've ever done is immerse myself in medicine. And that's not a bad thing. It's what makes you a good doctor. And I think a lot of doctors and professionals and career-driven people do that. But I was listening to you and Johnny, like, God, I'm not quite double your age, but I've got 10, 15 years on you. And yet your knowledge and your depth and variation is so much more than I think I have.
I feel like I know nothing.
Yeah, you think the other way. But I'm looking at you guys going, God, you're quoting this story and you're quoting this
because I just
person.
finished reading that 1984 book, so it was like
Yeah.
fresh in my mind.
But just that itself, and that's Orwell, right? And
Yeah.
you talk about Animal Farm, and I know all these books
I didn't get that in
exist,
school.
but-
I had Jack Wright, some Indigenous books. So I never got to read Orwell. So then everyone keeps talking about, like, I just want to read this so I know what people are talking about.
Yeah. And I think that's great, but I've never been able to convince myself to go and read that, because it's like, no, you're not the best doctor yet. You're not an expert. There's still so much more you can learn about being a doctor, Lloyd. But I'm getting to that phase in my life. I'm just thinking, yeah, you've got to, it's not about just being one dimension. You've got to, get experiences. And so when I listened to you and Johnny, I thought, I've got to read that book. Like, I've got to read Animal Farm. And you guys were quoting like history and like, God, is this because you've studied it recently and that's why it's special? Or have you guys just got this massive ability to juggle all these things? I'm fascinated.
That's what I think modern wisdom is so good at.
Yeah.
Is his knowledge pool that he can draw to is insane.
Absolutely. I don't feel inferior because, yeah, you get me on there talking about medicine,
but that's his job.
But that is his job. But
yeah.
I feel that Chris Williamson has got this ability to just constantly make you go, you're so right. Wow, what a great way of looking at it. And then the next episode, he'll say something else. And I'll say, God, how have you got all these pearls? Where are you getting them from?
He's got the laptop out.
I know. And he's got the luxury of having interviewed hundreds of people now and taken the best
production team.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I do. I like to think I was driving here today thinking, well, you're the Williamson and I'll be the Jimmy Carr, and we'll see. We'll see if we can emulate them and give somebody something to go away and go, yeah, that's so relatable. I don't know if you heard of Peter Kay, a comedian. He's a British comedian. Michael McIntyre, you probably have heard of. No, maybe not.
No. I've probably seen a clip of him on social media or something.
So Peter Kay and Michael McIntyre, they're comedians, and I wouldn't say they don't go out there and give these fantastic messages about how to look at your life and how to frame your life. But what they are is both very relatable characters. So they will stand up on stage and talk for 2 hours about things that affect everybody, and you can just you're watching this comedy act, just every 5 minutes turning to whoever you're sat with going, that's so true, that is so true, that's so funny. And that's why you laugh. It's because we're all experiencing it together. And I feel that Williamson and all the great podcasters, they do that. So yeah, it's not a comedy act, but it makes you go, oh yeah, you're so right. Well, yeah, well spotted. And they articulate it so well. It's my big fear. I talk and talk and talk, and I try and get this message across, and I end up waffling it up, and I talk for hours. I go all these different directions, whereas these guys just seem to deliver this pearl.
I think you're better than you think.
Maybe, yeah, I hope. And I've given a few catchphrases throughout the podcast.
You're either dumb enough to think you know everything or smart enough to know you know nothing?
Yes. Yeah. I can see that one. And that's
And
what I
clearly
love.
you're the latter.
I hope. Yeah, I hope. So I just like to, think, right, what can I offer? How can I just be a little bit different? I would love, how can you go viral? That's in the nicest way.
Did I say that the right way around?
Ah, see,
Dumb enough
dumb
to
enough
think you know everything, but smart enough to
to
know
know
you know
you
nothing.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how it
I
came
don't know if I
across.
said it the other way around.
You can
first
edit
time,
that,
but
right? Do you want
yeah.
to say it again once?
Power of editing. No, I don't even need to say it again.
True,
I've got
yeah.
I've got it.
No. So yeah. So I think I admire the fact that you're 77 episodes in, and granted,
just
you've
consistency.
had to use me 4 times. I'm sure you've got more guests.
We'll
but,
get to 10, Lloyd. We'll get to 10.
yeah, but no, I appreciate coming on, and I love it. I said to my wife yesterday, I'm up early doing the Crooked Smile, and I honestly I love just coming on and chatting.
Well, that's the thing. I want to get more conversational with these, like we're doing right now, like we've been doing today, like the last few episodes have been, because it is so much more enjoyable, not only for me, but I think the listener as well, to relax and listen to, instead of a formal like interview. Like I've got a list of 10 questions I'm going to ask, and no matter what they say, I'm just going to go to the next question. Whereas we'll talk about a topic and then that will spring onto another topic and again, and that just flows so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I was slightly worried coming here today because I had no prep at all. And I was like, actually, Laura, you don't need to prep. Like,
you already know it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I don't, you just put your hands up and say, actually, I don't know that, or no, tell me,
But
I know
it's your life, and you know your life better than anyone else, so you're the best person to speak about it.
Yeah. The caveat to that is, as a doctor, you have to be careful what you're saying, and I always understand that, and I say to you at the start of every episode, look, if we
put a
we
disclaimer
shouldn't
in the
talk about this,
description.
and please just put something in, or
I put the same one as last time. Don't worry.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I just think, did I say that right, or did I go it too far? And we as doctors have something called medical indemnity. So yeah, that will protect us in case you say something wrong or do something wrong. We're all human, and so far so good. It's not been an issue, but we have to be. You still have to be careful. So as much as I'm here to try and educate and impart knowledge and say the right things and help people, which is what I'm here to do, there's always people trying to shoot you down, or even if they're not, I'm just conscious of, let me just make sure I say this correctly, because you can't have people following your advice that's not applicable to them, But
absolutely, with the accuracy thing, but people shooting you down, I've talked about this quite a bit. I had another podcaster on, Alex Tom, recently, and we talked about it, is that if someone's taking the time out of their day to kind of like negatively comment or try and be destructive towards what you're working on, like they must be in a pretty bad spot to not only have the time to do that because they're too busy, but like clearly they're not in a good space if they're going to be hating on someone else, because you're not going to see someone doing better than you, like stooping down and like really kicking you hard when you're down. Like they'll just want you to win.
Yeah.
You will never, the saying is, you will never see a hater doing better than you.
Yeah.
It's a David Goggins saying.
Yeah. And I talk about that in the Men's Health article, actually. I did talk about that. No matter what you think, you look around you and there might be guys that you think, crikey, they have got it together. They are thriving. They are, they are up there and they are better than me. And actually, we've all got our own struggles, and we're all human
at the end of the day.
And you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So I talk about being kind, and we feel the feels, and all these ways that I've tried to impart a little bit of wisdom based on my experience about you will. And I told the guys yesterday at Scotch College, there's 400 of these of these great guys at year. It would have been middle school,
6 to 8.
Yeah, year 6 to 8 exactly. And just said, look around you. Day to day, we all run maybe between a 4 and a 6. Generally, most of us run between a 4 and a 6 on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being, I feel absolutely great. This is the best time of my life, down to 0, which is, I really am struggling and I don't feel good at all at the moment. And we might all look a 4 and a 6 generally, and we might run most of the time between a 4 and a 6, but there will be guys around you right now who are feeling a 1 and a 2, and there'll be guys feeling a 9 and a 10. And it's okay to feel that, and just trying to acknowledge that it's okay to feel those feels, and I refer to Gloria, my daughter, about that I do look at her sometimes and think, I don't know what you're feeling, and you can't express how you're feeling, and you may not actually get those 10s, unfortunately, and that makes me upset sometimes. I think, is she experiencing the 10, or am I giving her the opportunity to feel those 9s and 10s? And how do I know if she's feeling a 1 or a 2? And so I'm just trying to emphasize, I guess, feel the feels. It is okay to feel 1s and 2s. Acknowledge it, run with it, accept it, and just see it as, this is life, and I'm getting more out of life than maybe somebody else who's only running between a 4 and a 6. And that's what I was trying to tell these guys. Gratitude and accepting those varied emotions and life. Look, if you get to the end of life, and is it about experiences? Is it about memories? Is it about success? Or is it about feelings?
It's definitely not about spending more time on your phone.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I take a hint that you want to talk about screen time.
No.
I just, you're right.
You see all the people, like, you think about it, you're not going to be on your deathbed and go, I wish I spent more time on Instagram Reels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely not. You're wanting to, I hope I look back and go, yeah, I felt these various emotions, feelings, hopefully more positive than negative.
You took the good risks when you needed to, like as in starting Man Health, those sort of risks, not the health factor risks we were talking about before.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, and if Man Health doesn't go anywhere.
But it will, because you're invested in it, and that's the most important thing.
That's it. Yeah. It's another chapter. And it's got me here today, and I'm experiencing more things, and that's what it's about, if nothing else. So again, listen to that Jimmy Carr episode. I'm about halfway through it, and I'm like, oh, it's so true. Like, yeah, he was saying, he talks about enjoying the experience, not the pinnacle almost. So yes, everyone looks and thinks, oh, it must be brilliant to be up on stage in front of 50,000 people in Wembley. Yeah, but you've got to be willing to put in all those hours and graft and bad experiences and boring experiences to get there. And Williamson talks about, basically to paraphrase, they're willing to be that guy up on stage in front of 50,000 people, but these people are not willing to put in all the other stuff on the way to get there.
Everyone wants the view at the top of the mountain, but not the climb.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. That's the perfect way of putting it. But what then Jimmy Carr is trying to say, and I don't want to keep going back, but you've got to enjoy that climb.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's about the journey,
it's
not
about
the
journey,
destination.
exactly. So sit there, and he was talking about sitting in the back of a taxi on the way to an airport thinking, this is boring, but he's like, but I've got to enjoy this, because this is what's getting me to the top of the mountain. So yeah, enjoy the journey, run with it, feel the feels, and and at the end of the day, we all just scuttle off planet Earth to be forgotten.
There is one thing I want to pick your brain on, and it's more medical related, is blood work and supplements.
Yeah, okay.
Because is Man Health running blood work, testing, and looking for deficiencies and supplementing, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. All within reason. So without getting into the intricacies of how the health system works here in Australia, yes, when there's a clinical need for a test, absolutely, we would look at that. And a lot of my guys are assessed for B12, folic acid, iron. We can look at magnesium, we look at potassium, sodium. There's also, blood work can be vast.
To help paint the picture of your overall health.
It's
part of the Man Health package.
Yeah,
the whole
absolutely.
man package.
The whole man, exactly. But again, it's about fact finding first and making sure that, okay, these guys are coming to me, what test do they actually need? Not, let's just give you every test under the sun. Okay, that's not what it's about, and it's evidence-based, and we've got to work out, well, why do you need this test? Do you really need that test? So at the same time, you want to be very thorough as well, and if guys are worried about something specifically, then you address it, and you might test for that. Blood work, and we can look at varied, and lots of guys are interested in their testosterone levels and there's other hormones. It's, insulin's a hormone, thyroid function's a hormone, but whenever we talk about hormones in guys, we think testosterone. And actually there's so much more to hormones than testosterone.
That's what you and VJ, the endocrinologist, were talking
VJ
about.
Panica, yeah, absolutely. And there's so many things that can influence your testosterone, not just sort of, I'll inject testosterone, I'm going to take testosterone supplements. Like, No. There's so many caveats to that. But yeah, blood work is a real good baseline. And then we can use that to guide us. We do talk about supplements.
I know it's individualized, but do you take any supplements?
I do. I take a multivitamin, or multivitamin, as you would call it here in WA, probably 2 or 3 times a week.
And that's it?
That's it. I take creatine as well. So creatine
That's
and
like
a multivitamin.
I've heard that's the Michael Jordan of sports supplements. For brain function and for performance.
There's not many supplements that have strong evidence
For cognitive function.
For cognitive function, or sometimes many other functions either. In a healthy person who is eating well, exercising, sleeping, actually the amount of supplements you need is minimal, if anything at all. But I do take a multivitamin. Again, don't know if it's psychological for me, but if I'm getting to the end of a week thinking, and I've maybe not had enough certain vitamins this week, there are certain times in my week where I will calorie restrict, and I'm in an absolute calorie deficit, and I fast at times as well. I'm not going to advocate that, but that's my personal way of doing things. I generally fast a lot in the week, and then increase my calorie intake towards the end of the week, where I'm training a lot more, lifting weights,
and spending time with the family.
Spending time with the family and enjoying the social aspect of eating. But generally in my week, when I'm in the thick of my work day and work week, I tend to be in a calorie deficit. So I know I struggle when I'm in a calorie deficit. I do struggle to get those micronutrients in. I do struggle to get enough protein. I'll struggle to get your vitamin C, iron, and a few other things. So I will take a multivitamin a couple of times during the week, because I think, actually, yeah, I've really not consumed much of the rainbow. I've really not had that much fiber. So I will take a multivitamin. And creatine is a daily thing for me.
Well, you have to take it daily for it to be effective, don't you?
You do. Some people will load with a very high dose for a week or so, and then they'll drop down to like a maintenance. Yeah, creatine monohydrate would be. There's no evidence to say that monohydrate over other types of creatine is better.
I've looked into HCl creatine because it's friendlier on the gut. Because monohydrate's quite rough on the gut.
It can be, but even then, I think very few people will experience that side effect. But yeah, there are other forms, and you can, as long as you're getting it from a reputable person, a reputable place, then yeah, it's one of those supplements that can help.
The one I take daily that I've noticed a difference in my sleep, because I'll get like nose congestion before I go to sleep, and I'll wake up and I'll be struggling to, even with a nose tape, I'll be struggling to breathe through my nose because I've got a deviated septum. Magnesium glycinate.
Yeah, so again, magnesium it's one of those super supplements that people talk about, that it can have so many benefits. So I'm not sure on the exact mechanism of magnesium with assisting with
because there's citrate's the general one, isn't it? But there's so many different types of magnesium.
Oxalate, glycinate, citrate. There's various, and they are all technically, they all have a slight specific action on sleep, on cramps, on mood, on the gut. The magnesium is a laxative. So yes, depending on which form that can determine where it's going to be better from a assistance to your bodily function point of view. But yeah, I'm not sure on the direct action on sort of the sinuses.
Just inflammation in the body.
Yeah, potentially. It's
I've noticed, because I accidentally switched to regular magnesium.
Yeah,
I bought the wrong one, and then in those 2 weeks that I was using it before, I realized so much more nasal congestion and inflammation. And then I switched back and started sleeping so much better again.
Look, I think the big emphasis with any supplement is you've got to have that conversation about risk and benefit, and with your individual physician. By the way,
I've got one that I've started taking that I don't know if it's sleep placebo or not, but ashwagandha.
I knew that was coming.
Ashwagandha. I've started taking it before I go to sleep and when I wake up in the morning, like a pure extract, 300 milligrams.
The dosing I'm not fully up on, but I know the dosing can really vary if you actually have a look at the
And
packaging.
a lot of them are like cocktails of other stuff. Mine's like
Yes.
pure extract
Yeah.
ashwagandha.
So all I would say on that is that we did an episode on Tackle Talk on supplements, and I think we each said, look, we'll try a different supplement.
Oh yeah, you told me.
And I did ashwagandha.
What did you think?
So the only thing I noticed was
Because it takes 20 days for it to start working, roughly.
Yeah. So we gave it a bit of time. The big thing for me is I was feeling tired on my way to work every morning. I think it was just really making me feel quite relaxed, great, but actually to the point where I was just, I noticed in the mornings, I'd still have my coffee in the morning. I'd do everything else as planned, but I'd started taking ashwagandha, and I was noticing that driving into work in the mornings, I was just like, God, I'm too relaxed here. I'm feeling, I don't know, I just felt a bit sleepy and a bit run down with it. So whether it was helping my sleep, it probably was, but it was maybe that what you have to be mindful of is, that hangover effect the next morning, that it's still in your system, it's still making you feel a little bit run down. So everything, I think it has to be risk and benefit, and I'm not here to say, everyone should take this, and this. That's just my opinion and how I take supplements these days. I think everything should be discussed with someone who knows you.
Absolutely.
And that's your physician or your local pharmacist. And you have to have that conversation about risk and benefit, because none of these things come with no side effects. But also these things can be expensive. They can be detrimental to certain aspects of your health. So just be mindful of that.
Well, before we wrap up, I feel like it'd be criminal not to talk about man health and how everything's going just in general.
Yeah, no, thank you. So it's going well. I'm running clinics weekly. The Whole Man program is going really well. It's drumming up a lot of interest, my 10-week program. I think what I'm enjoying more about the clinic as well now is the non-clinical side. So they've been able to come and do things like this. And I went into some
You've
schools.
got an event today as well?
Got an event today for International Men's Health Week at Adapt Health Club. Chris Naina is fantastic. So I came across Chris. I was introduced to him, friend of a friend of a friend. So Chris is fantastic, and I just loved. In fact, I love collaborating with other like-minded people within WA, and so Man Health and Adapt Health Club of today, we're putting on a couple of hours for a group of guys to come in. We will look at, in fact, the 4 M's is how we've tried to structure it. So movement. So Chris is going to put on a 30 to 40 minute movement class, and that will be, resistance training, plyometrics, just really trying to give guys an experience of what it is to just move your body, and there's so many benefits to that, which I could talk for hours on. Movement, mindfulness, and sort of mental health. So we're doing
man health.
Yeah, that's
health.
on that. Yeah, we're doing a bit of sort of breath work and meditation, which Chris is going to lead. He's got a bit of background in that. What's the other one? I'll call it mentorship. It's not mentorship. It's mastery. Let's say mastery, which is I'm actually giving a talk. So I'm going to stand up for 40 minutes, and I'm going to get guys to talk about or think about men's health throughout the ages. So what should you be thinking about from 16 to 30? What about 30 to 40? What about 40 to 50? And we'll talk prostates, we'll talk testosterone, we'll talk bone health. For the older guys, we'll talk about falls and eyesight. And so I'm just trying to educate. And then I'm talking about the big 3, which is the thing guys always want to talk about or should know about, and that's heart health, testosterone, and metabolic health. So I'll go into depth on those 3 topics. If I could sum up men's health in 3 topics, it's pretty much those 3, although there's so much more to men's health. And then the 4th M is mateship. So we're actually just meeting a group of guys, running through all this, smiles on faces, hopefully, introducing ourselves to each other. We're off for a coffee and lunch then at one of the local coffee shops in Perth, High Horse, who've been fantastic in sort of being a semi-sponsor, and we all disappear at 1 o'clock, hopefully feeling good. It's a group of guys who've talked and chatted and learnt and have moved. I can't see any better way of spending a Saturday morning. So look, regardless of how the clinic's going, which is very well, by the way, I think it's great that I'm starting to collaborate and getting my name out there. That's what I want to do and help guys.
Awesome. Well, where can everyone find you?
www.manhealth.com.au. I'm working out of Hollywood Medical Centre with a view to potentially branching out over the next couple of weeks, months. So yeah, watch this space.
Watch this space.
Yeah, and please get chatting, guys. Be good to yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. And yeah, you know where I am at Man Health Clinic.
Thanks very much for your time today, Lloyd. As always, really appreciate it. And we'll have you on soon again.
Pleasure. Thanks, Cam.
And I can never ever. If you get lost, I press the rewind so you don't see nine. No, I can tell that you a winner. I'm making key lime cause I was living in the backseat till you bagged me. All my niggas never playing games like we bad street. When she's talking, feel like poetry in motion. And I feel like I'm chosen. When she look at me, I'm getting lost up in that ocean. Everywhere in motion. They ain't got a notion. I wanna tell the world.